Well, good morning to all. So today we're focused on Psalm 26. But before we read Psalm 26, we're going to start over, at least a reading of the first line of Psalms. And then I'll explain how that links to today's reading. Psalm 1 began, as you may recall, Ashrei Ha'ish, contented is the individual, Asher lo halach, who did not walk, ba'atzat risha'im, in the counsel of wicked, uvederech chata'im lo amad, and in the way of those who are astray she has not stood, uvmoshav leitzim lo yashav, and in the place of seating of scornful, this person has not sit. Well, that psalm, Ashrei, the opening word, is about contentment. There's a sense of who is contented. And there's a lot of similar language, as we'll see in Psalm 26, to walking and sitting, avoiding walking and sitting. But what is different in this psalm is the lack of the contentment, the first word of Ashrei. This psalter remarkably can be read as intensely self-confident. And that's why I chose to name this psalm, Judge Me, as a banner of integrity. And there's a lot of that language of, I'm ready, God, to be judged because I am good. I am innocent. I have avoided the wicked people, and I have been drawn to you and your temple. I'm going to read it first. But before I do, I like to kind of give you a heads up as to structure, so as to kind of get a sense of where this psalter is going. Then I'll talk a little bit about who could have written it. What's the potential prompt? Why is the tone of this psalm so different than any of the other psalms we have read in terms of, on the surface, the confidence of the psalter in the psalter's goodness? And then I want to do something that's a little bit different, which is talk about the overall theme of avoiding evil people and linking it to an interview I watched last night with Abraham Joshua Heschel, the great Jewish thinker, done almost 50 years ago. All right, here's the breakdown of how this psalm is structured. It's shorter than yesterday's. It's 12 verses. Verses 1 and 2 are a request. Verses 3 to 5 are a self-description. 6 to 8 are a exclamation of the love of the temple and God. And 9 to 12 go back to the theme of request, with some language of the beginning and the end being similar. Psalm 26. For David, judge me, Adonai, for I walk with integrity, and in Adonai I trust. I will not waver. Test me, Adonai, and use me as a banner. Probe my kidneys and my heart. For your kindness is before my eyes, and I walk about with your truth. I do not sit with the deceitful, nor with hucksters will I go. I hate the gathering of evildoers, and with the wicked I will not sit. I shall wash my palms clean, and I will encircle your altar, Adonai, to make heard with a voice of gratitude and to tell of all your wonders. Adonai, I have loved the habitation of your house and the place of indwelling of your glory. Do not gather my spirit with those who go astray, nor my life with the blood spillers, who have in their grip vile schemes, and whose right hands are filled with bribes. But as for me, with my integrity, let me walk, redeem me, and be gracious to me. My foot stands on level ground. Amidst communal gatherings, I will bless Adonai. So some thoughts to kind of unpack and point out. First thing to note is that the first verse has 4 I's and 1 me, which is to say 5 times it's self-referential, setting a tone for this as a deeply personal statement before God. And there's a request, verses 1 and 2. Judge me, test me, probe my kidneys and my heart. In the ancient world, the kidneys were viewed as the seat of conscience, the discernment of right and wrong. I don't know why. I was meant to investigate it, but didn't get there. The heart is what we would use in more common parlance today as mind. So heart was identified, maybe because when your heart begins to beat quickly, we feel ourselves changing, anticipating, nervous. And so mind and heart in the Bible are linked. So test me. Here's my one creative interpretation / translation. Use me as a banner is frankly my own translation. The word notness can be a banner, like a flag, but it can also be to be tested. But here, because of the tone of confidence, rather than being used as another synonym for test me or probe me in verse 2, I chose to use this as the theme that's distinctive of this psalm, which is the Psalter's seeming confidence. Use me as a banner, meaning I am so good, God, you can hold me up as a role model, as a symbol of faithfulness to you. And now that self-description is verses 3, 4, and 5. For your kindness is before my eyes, and I walk about with your truth. Now, here's something to note. There's a lot of the use of walking. So in the first verse, I walk with integrity, betumi halachti, and here too, vehit halachti ba'amitecha. I translated it as, I walk about with your truth, because it has this reflective quality. In fact, Richard Levy, one of the translators, translates this hit alachti as, I have trod the limits of your truth. And he's a wonderful scholar and a rabbi, sees this as a statement, I have been tested by you and I've walked to the limits of asking questions. I think for myself that's an overreach, but I still value it. And as Ahuva has told me and taught me, all these different interpretations all have a place in our tradition. And here it goes now with, I do not sit, lo yashafti. So we get a lot of walking and sitting, imite shav, with the deceitful. Shav can be falsehoods, those who engage in falsehoods, v'im na'alamim, and with, literally, the word na'alem is to hide. So some people, like in Art Scroll, translate this as hypocrites. Martin Cohen as those who hide their motives. I liked the word huckster, because what a huckster is doing is hiding the true intent, engaging in a fraud. Lo avo, I will not go. I hate the gathering of evildoers, and with the wicked I will not sit. So again, the key motif here is walking and sitting. And here the Psalter in his self-description says in verse 3, I walk with your truth. I don't sit. I don't go. I don't gather. I will not sit with those who are immoral. And now the next phase, as I continue to unpack a little bit of these choices, I shall wash my palms clean, and I will encircle your altar, Adonai, to make heard with a voice of gratitude the tell of your wonders. Adonai, I've loved the habitation of your house, in the place of your indwelling of your glory. Verses 6 to 8 describe service in the temple. A Levite or Kohen would wash his or her hands ritually. They would walk around the altar and they would sing. If you're a Levite, that was your job, to be the chorus. Now I'm going to focus in on what prompted the writing of this psalm. Some would say, one moment, this is my problem of having too many notes. Some would say that this psalm was written by a Levite. Now, the Levite, potentially, in those verses 6 to 8, is describing the work of a Levite. And you'll get back to that at the very end also, in verse 12. And perhaps he's writing about the political leaders of the day. There was always a tension between, if you will, the religious leaders and the political leaders, and the critique here as that the political leaders are corrupt. We'll find that throughout the prophets. Here's some other thoughts about who might have written this. It might have been a plea of someone unjustly accused. For instance, one Bible scholar, Dahoud, says it's somebody who might have been accused of idolatry falsely. And so here, defensively, this individual says, no, it's not true. I am loyal to God. I avoid those who might lead me astray. A. Cohen says it's uneasiness amidst evil, that there's a lot of corruption in the midst of this moment or this political time. And the Psalter is saying, I'm not comfortable with what's going on around me. And at the same time, exhibiting some doubts in himself, for it is tempting to be engaged in the frivolity and even in the evil. Interestingly, in this psalm, there is no direct description of a threat to the Psalter, as we saw more commonly in the earlier psalms of enemies seeking to destroy him. Here, it's more a statement about corruption around him that he's seeking to avoid, to remain true to God. One last commentator in terms of the motivation, a commentator named Ewald, who says, this may have been a moment like a plague in which everybody was threatened, good and bad alike. And in this moment of danger, the Psalter is saying, God, protect me. Look at me. I'm not evil. I am good. I need you. Well, those are some of the theories. And the theory that I relate to in terms of this psalm, and I should finish up the last few verses. Let me do that. And then I'll pull that together, and then we'll move to Heschel. And that is now verse 9, back to requests. That's the envelope. It opens with requests, concludes with requests. And here, with verses 9 and 10, the Psalter will return to who are these hucksters? Who are these people that engage in deceit? and is more specific. Do not gather, verse 9, my spirit with those who go astray, nor my life with the blood spillers, who have in their grip vile schemes, and whose right hands are filled with bribes, which is to indicate that these people have power, right? Somebody wants to give them bribes. Now, that can be seen as literal, or it can be understood metaphorically, that they're self-serving in all that they do. But this is strong. They are blood spillers with in their grip vile schemes. And now verse 11, back to himself. But as for me, bit to me elech, with my integrity, let me walk. Now in Hebrew, as I've noted, it's
Rabbi, are you still there? I think we lost him. Let me get in contact with him, guys.
am I back? All right. I don't know. Well, I'm glad to be back. Okay. So verse 11, but as for me, with my integrity, let me walk, redeem me, and be gracious to me, exhibits a crack in the confidence. You see, the Psalter here is revealed to be longing for God and God's help, because there is either danger in the hands of those with power or the culture at large, or he is revealing his own psychic temptations. And so verse 12, the closing verse, my foot stands on level ground, which is the contrast to the walking in the beginning. So verse 12 comes back to verse 1. He's now focused on feet, on walking. But here the word is bimishor, which is like yashar, straight. So he's standing either straight. Some translated it as my foot stands upright. Often it translates as he's standing upright because the ground is flat. But makelim can be understood as the choir, the communal gatherings. I will bless Adonai. So this psalm focuses on the temptations, the dangers of those who are immoral. In that regard, it's like Psalm 1, which is why we started there. But here, there isn't the sense of rejoicing, rather trepidation. It's a closing with, God, help me move forward in ways that I will be a person of integrity, true to you. I love you. I love your sanctuary. That's where I want to sit. I walk around it. I sing in it. I want to be the one who is your banner. I want to be the one who is your praise maker, but I need your help. Now, today, I'd like to talk a little bit about Heschel. Usually when I do these Psalms together, I'm doing it in a way of not preaching, but analyzing the Psalm. And that's true, I hope, in this moment as well. But yesterday, I listened to a lecture It's through CSP. It'll be again today at 12:30. You might want to catch Peter Geffen, who was a student of Abraham Joshua Heschel. And he posted a interview by Frank Reynolds, CBS, done in 1971, within a year of Heschel's passing. And it seems to resonate for me as relevant to this psalm. And here's what Heschel, with his flowing white hair and his white goatee, this heir to a Hasidic rabbinate, the Apter Rebbe, for whom he was named, Abraham Joshua Heschel, his great-grandfather. His father was a Hasidic Rebbe who died when Abraham was young, and they wanted him to be the Hasidic master of his community. And instead, he chose to learn in a Misnagid yeshiva first in Vilna, and then to earn a doctorate in Berlin at Humboldt University, University of Berlin, in which he wrote his doctoral dissertation on the prophets. And in this interview, he says that the key religious question is, what does it mean to be human? And the goal of religion is to cultivate that which is distinctly human, that distinguishes us from the animal world. And he pointed toward that spiritual quality that's distinctly human as care for other people. It was 1971. A lot of that conversation dealt with the Vietnam War. Abraham Joshua Heschel had been active in the civil rights movement. He said that to care for other people, to see ourselves as linked as humanity, that's the core religious idea of the Bible, that there's a creator to whom we are all related to all of creation, and that we should awake every day with an element of surprise for the goodness in our lives and our responsibilities to help God in maintaining creation. And at the core of that was caring for all other peoples and caring about justice. He emphasized that in doing so, we must not be political in terms of hedging truth, but always speaking truthfully. That's the goal of religion, is to be the place of truth telling. And he pointed out that the problem in the Garden of Eden was deception. At least as the rabbis understood the expulsion from the garden, it was a process of deception in which the snake deceived Eve in the Midrash, in the rabbinic imaginings, and then Eve deceived Adam. And that separating from God, separating from harmony, is a product of half-truths, lies, self-serving behavior, and ultimately, he emphasized, a failure to be honest. And so, in looking at the world with the prompting of Frank Reynolds in this interview, he said that he is on one hand pessimistic. Mind you, this was 50 years ago. He's pessimistic because what is distinctly human is the gift of language, culture, transmitting ideas. And he says as he looks around, he sees an abuse of language, dishonesty. He sees people standing idly by the suffering of their neighbor. And when pressed by Frank Reynolds whether he was indeed pessimistic or had hope, he said, well, the part of him that was realistic was in fact pessimistic and discouraged, but he was ultimately an optimist because he was a believer, and that he believed that God would have compassion on us despite our lack of merit, and on some level help guide us to our higher selves. that would allow us to be saved. And so to sum up Psalm 26, and then just 5 minutes we'll have for some reactions. This psalm deals with those themes. The Psalter says, around me are those who are deceitful. They are hucksters. They engage in vile schemes. They take bribes. They lack integrity. But I, God, look at me. I work at it. I work at it. I walk about with your truths before me, with my sense of responsibility. But you got to help me maintain my integrity, redeem me, be kind to me, gracious to me. Let me feel steady, verse 12. And then amidst communal gatherings, I will bless Adonai. I, back to verse 2, ask that you use me as a banner of your presence in the world. So with that as a look at Psalm 26, we have just time for a comment or two. If we can have the open screen now. And this morning, does anybody have something that touched you that you would react to in terms of Psalm 26? Okay, I don't see any hands as I look up. Alex, go ahead.
I just want to note that in the earlier psalm, it says, who could arise to the mountain of the Lord, those with clean hands.
Yes.
And here it says, even if you don't start off with clean hands, I shall wash my palms clean.
Right. So this idea of washing palms or washing hands has, several layers of meaning. For priests and Levites, there would be a ritual washing. That's what we do before the motzi. Even if our hands are clean, we who are imitating the priests ritually wash our hands. And it then becomes, on the symbolic level, a symbol of here, I haven't taken anything that was not rightly mine. In that sense, my palms are clean, metaphorically. And because I have clean palms, but here in verse 6, it's more of a ritual context, because what follows is walking and circling the altar. Rather than, as you correctly remember, Alex, it's also used as a metaphor for untainted by wrongdoing. Well, because I'm always conscious of time, and I don't see any hands at the moment. I have one. Richard, last comment, and then I'll react, and then we'll do a closing Kaddish. Go ahead, Richard. Good.
The first couple of verses, he talks about judge me and test me.
Yeah.
And that comes, that's a really bold statement for somebody.
Yeah.
It's just that he is willing to do that. Although in verse 3, it kind of, what would you call it, softens it a little bit. Test me for your kindness is before my eyes, and I walk about with your truth. So it sort of, it balances that boldness a bit, basing it on who God is. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
So that's very well said, Richard, and helps pull this together. Namely, on one hand, there's this quality of self-confident boldness. Test me, probe me, use me as your banner. And then, as Richard astutely points out, for your kindness is before my eyes, because I expect that you will judge me kindly, be gracious to me. And that's why I can feel confident. In that sense, it's not necessarily, it is not arrogant. It is relying on God's goodness. And yet at the same time, so the classic commentators say, this is King David after having done repentance for Bathsheba, in which King David is saying, God, look at me. I've repented. You know that my goal is to serve you. Of course, the problem is historically there is no temple that David is necessarily serving in and joining in, but that's an aside. One historical claim. The other one is Martin Cohen, in his analysis of this, would say what's meaningful to him is the challenge for us. Would we have the confidence to say to God, judge me? I have the confidence that I have lived with integrity or not. And more, what for us does it mean to live a life of integrity? What for us are, back to Heschel, the moral standards that define God's expectations of a human being? And that question continues to resonate when one finishes this psalm. What I do love about this psalm is, again, that it does have a different tone, the tone of I'm ready to be judged, and yet that's in part because I see you, God, as kind. So good pulling this together, Richard, with that highlight. With that, we'll close with Kaddish, the mourner's prayer of anybody, which is traditional after study. And next week, Psalm 27, 28, and 29, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. As was pointed out yesterday, Psalm 27 is the psalm said every day in the month before Rosh Hashanah. And one of the questions we'll look to answer on Tuesday is, of all the psalms, why did the rabbis specifically choose 27 as preparation for a new year? Now, Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divra kirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael v'agala u'vizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya Yitbarach Yishtabach V'Pa'ar V'Dramam V'Yaseh V'Tadar V'Taleh V'Talal Shemei D'Kusha B'Richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Shushbechata V'Nechamata D'Amiran B'Alma V'Imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'el Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom B'Romav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'el Kol Yisrael V'Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. Thank you each for coming. Wish you all a good day and looking forward to tomorrow night. Wishing all of you a Shabbat Shalom.